Have you ever wondered how a person can vanish into the fabric of everyday life after committing unimaginable crimes so completely that decades pass before anyone even knows who they are? Imagine a predator who terrorized an entire state, left behind hundreds of crime scenes, taunted police, and then simply disappeared. No arrest, no trial, no answers. For years, detectives chased a ghost. This is the story of a cold case that haunted law enforcement for over 4 decades. The hunt for the man who became known as the Golden State Killer. In the mid-1970s, California was growing fast. New suburbs were spreading, families felt safe behind locked doors, and communities believed violent crime belonged somewhere else. That illusion shattered in 1974, when a series of strange burglaries began in the city of Visalia. Homes were entered quietly at night. Items were rearranged, sometimes stolen, sometimes left behind. In several cases, a masked man was seen fleeing into the darkness. At first, police believed they were dealing with a prolific but non-violent burglar. They called him the Visalia Ransacker. Then the crimes escalated. In September 1975, college professor Claude Snelling was shot and killed while trying to stop a masked man from abducting his daughter from their home. The Visalia Ransacker had crossed a terrifying line. Investigators believed the killer fled the area, but they had no idea that something far worse was about to unfold hundreds of miles away. In June 1976, the city of Rancho Cordova, near Sacramento, experienced a crime that would shock the nation. A masked man broke into a home at night, woke a couple at gunpoint, tied them up, and raped the woman while forcing the man to listen helplessly. The attacker whispered threats, stacked dishes on the man's back to ensure compliance, and fled silently into the night. He struck again, and again, and again. Soon, entire neighborhoods lived in fear. He attacked couples, single women, and families. He struck in Sacramento, then moved south to Contra Costa County, Santa Barbara, Ventura, and eventually Orange County. Each time police began to see patterns, he changed locations. When patrols increased, he disappeared, only to resurface months later, somewhere new. The media gave him names that reflected the growing horror. First, the East Area Rapist, then the original Night Stalker. Eventually, these identities would be merged into one terrifying figure, the Golden State Killer. Between 1976 and 1979, the East Area Rapist committed at least 50 rapes. He stalked his victims for days or weeks beforehand, learning their routines, sometimes calling them on the phone to whisper threats. He often entered homes hours before attacks to unlock windows or hide ligatures. Survivors described his voice as calm, controlled, and chillingly methodical. Then, as abruptly as the rapes began, they stopped. For a brief moment, investigators hoped the nightmare was over. But in 1979, a new wave of violence emerged, this time in Southern California. Couples were found murdered in their homes. The killer used bludgeoning and strangulation. In several cases, sexual assault was evident. The brutality was shocking, and the lack of forensic evidence made the crimes incredibly difficult to solve. For years, no one connected these murders to the East Area Rapist. The jurisdictions were far apart. The crimes looked different. The killer had evolved. It wasn't until the early 2000s that cold case investigators began revisiting old evidence with fresh eyes. DNA technology had advanced, and preserved biological material from crime scenes was finally tested. The results were chilling. The same DNA profile appeared in rape kits from Northern California and murder scenes in the South. The Visalia Ransacker, the East Area Rapist, and the original Night Stalker were the same person. One man, one long trail of terror. Yet knowing that didn't make finding him any easier. By this point, the killer was likely middle-aged or older. He had never been arrested for these crimes. He had lived an ordinary life, blending into society. Detectives worked tirelessly, re-interviewing witnesses, reviewing old police reports, and testing every lead. Hundreds of suspects were investigated. None matched the DNA. The case became one of the most infamous unsolved crime sprees in American history. Survivors waited decades for answers. Families of murder victims grew old without justice. Many investigators retired or died, haunted by the feeling that they had failed. One former detective described the case as a weight that never lifted. Even years later, it kept him awake at night. Then, in 2018, everything changed. Investigators decided to try something radical, something never before used to catch a serial killer. Instead of searching criminal databases, they turned to genetic genealogy. They uploaded the unknown suspect's DNA profile to a public genealogy website used by people researching family history. The idea was simple but powerful. If the killer had relatives who had submitted their DNA, investigators could trace family trees backward until they found someone who fit the profile. Within weeks, leads began to emerge. Genealogists helped law enforcement narrow the search to a specific family line. From there, detectives built massive family trees, sometimes spanning hundreds of individuals. They cross-referenced ages, locations, military records, and employment histories. One name began to stand out: Joseph James DeAngelo. DeAngelo was a former police officer who had worked in several California departments during the exact years the crimes occurred. He lived near multiple attack locations. He had been fired from a police job in 1979 for shoplifting, a fact that raised eyebrows but had never previously linked him to violent crime. Most chilling of all, his age, physical description, and background aligned almost perfectly with survivor accounts. But suspicion wasn't enough. Investigators needed DNA. In April 2018, detectives followed DeAngelo discreetly. They collected discarded items he had touched: a tissue, trash, eventually a car door handle. The DNA matched the Golden State Killer profile. After more than 40 years, the ghost had a name. On April 24, 2018, Joseph James DeAngelo was arrested outside his home in Citrus Heights, California. Neighbors watched in disbelief as police took away a quiet, elderly man who had lived among them for decades. Some described him as grumpy. Others said he kept to himself. None suspected the truth. When confronted, DeAngelo reportedly showed little emotion. He offered no dramatic confession, no explanation, just silence. In 2020, he pleaded guilty to 13 counts of murder and admitted to dozens of rapes as part of a plea deal that spared him the death penalty. In court, survivors and families spoke directly to him, some for the first time. Many described lives shaped by fear, trauma, and unanswered questions. One survivor said that while DeAngelo had taken years from her life, he no longer had power over her. Another told him that justice, though delayed, had finally arrived. DeAngelo was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. For detectives, the arrest was both a triumph and a reckoning. It proved that cold cases are never truly dead. It showed that perseverance, technology, and collaboration can overcome even the most elusive criminals. But it also raised difficult questions about missed opportunities, jurisdictional failures, and how someone with law enforcement training used that knowledge to evade capture for so long. Today, the Golden State Killer case stands as one of the most significant breakthroughs in criminal investigation history. It changed how police approach cold cases, Genetic genealogy has since been used to solve dozens of long unsolved murders across the country. But beyond the science and headlines, the case is a reminder of the human cost of unsolved crime. Every year without answers meant another year of pain for survivors and families. Justice delayed is not justice denied, but it is justice deeply felt. The Golden State Killer haunted California for decades, but in the end, he could not outrun time. He could not erase the evidence, and he could not escape accountability. If this story shows us anything, it's that the past is never truly buried, and truth has a way of resurfacing, no matter how long it takes. If you found this deep dive into one of history's most haunting cold cases compelling, make sure to subscribe to the channel for more meticulously researched true crime stories. Like this video to help support the work and stay connected, because there are many more cases where the answers were hidden in plain sight, waiting decades to be uncovered.